But I want to talk about IU men's basketball as well, because turnovers and second half struggles pretty much doomed IU men's basketball to an upset bid being a failure at the Breslin Center in East Lansing against number 12 Michigan State. This one was going to be an uphill battle the entire way. It was understood that this was going to be an uphill battle. And Michigan State, I mean, just an absolutely otherworldly environment. I haven't watched a game at the Breslin Center in a while live. I wasn't there in person, but I was there, to sort of watch it live, and that was on TV, and that was fun and interesting. It was loud, it was entertaining. Obviously, the cheers were for the team that I was not rooting for, but nonetheless, it was fun and interesting to watch that and experience that, and I appreciated that a great deal. This is a stark contrast in styles. Kind of talk about this with Noah from in a couple wrestling matches earlier. Looking forward to Sam Goen and Jackson Smith at 184 for Indiana, Maryland. It's just kind of a plug from the segment from earlier, in case you're skipping to this one and skipped over that one. Nonetheless, contrast in styles, right? Michigan State, physical, front court emphasis. Indiana shoots a lot of threes. They can do other things. It's a kind of a myth that Indiana just shoots threes and they can't do anything else. They do have other abilities, but nonetheless, a team that shoots a lot of threes, they put a lot of emphasis on the perimeter. And on the other side, you have a team that puts a lot of emphasis on the front court. They put a lot of emphasis on the paint. They put a lot of emphasis on physicality and playing down low. And so these two teams, again, a contrast in styles, the front court and the perimeter. And so ultimately, it was going to be interesting to see how these two styles played out. And early on, it looks to be favoring Indiana. Indiana was shooting the three ball well. They were shooting well from outside. Michigan State offensively wasn't really putting enough emphasis on the front court, to be honest. And on defense, they were putting too much emphasis on the perimeter to where guys like Tatum Conaway and even Sam Alexis could sneak through the back door to, put together some scoring plays and scoring opportunities for their team. They were able to get some layups, some free layups that way. Indiana was taking care of the basketball early. They were looking good. They were in competition. Jeremy Fears was unstoppable. It didn't matter what the approach to defending Fears was. Fears was unstoppable. He was always going to be. Michigan State started shooting a little better. Tang started to get into flow from outside. You also saw, Jackson Kohler down low, and Michigan State starting to feed the blocks more. So the offense definitely ticked up in effectiveness throughout the first half, and ultimately Michigan State ended up leading by 7 or 8 at halftime, 39-32, 39-31, something along those lines. And they ended up putting themselves in a pretty good position and putting themselves in a pretty good place. But nonetheless, Michigan State team, they had a lead, but Indiana was very much in it. And then again, the second half, Indiana not quite able to put together a full 40 minutes of successful basketball, not quite able to take care of the basketball for a full 40 minutes, and certainly allowing those turnovers to spiral downwards to the point where they're spiraling out of control in the wrong direction, and Michigan State's pulling away. They're in their own building. It's a raucous environment. Jeremy Fears is unstoppable. Michigan State has the physical advantage, and the Spartans pull away, and the game is over, and they win 81-60. And to be honest, that was kind of exactly what happened. Michigan State was opportunistic in transition, 25 to 12 in fast break points for Michigan State, 37-19 for rebounds. You see that physical advantage. You see that advantage in transition, right? Because Indiana's turning the ball over so much. And so Michigan State had the advantage in the front court. Indiana wasn't shooting the three well. They were shooting the three well, but they weren't shooting it. There wasn't enough of a gap between three-point shooting abilities between Indiana and Michigan State. Michigan State was matching it just enough to where they were able to sort of sustain their leads and only expand on them. IU was on eggshells. They weren't defending without fouling. Enright and Bailey fouled out late with 5 minutes left in the game. So it was a difficult outing for IU men's basketball. And ultimately it just comes down to their strength was the perimeter, and they were hitting shots, but Michigan State, not to the same degree, but was hitting shots in the same way. Michigan State was also successful down low with physicality in the front court. And, oh, by the way, Indiana was just handing possessions and handing fast break points to Michigan State, and that's not the way to beat a team that's top 12 on the road. Ultimately, obviously, IU men's basketball falls short, and that's all there is to say about that. But again, a competitive first half, an encouraging first half, and then a second half where it just slips away all too quickly. Against Nebraska, it looked a little better because it was a home game and it stayed close throughout the rest of it, throughout the duration of it. Michigan State, not quite the same. Obviously, Michigan State I guess in theory, not a more difficult opponent since Nebraska is number 10, Michigan State number 12. But nonetheless, in my opinion, Michigan State's a better team than Nebraska. Obviously, the resumes say differently, and I am not disagreeing with the ranking. Just I think if they played each other, Michigan State probably wins if they played on a neutral court tomorrow. But nonetheless, Michigan State looks good. I like them a lot, and it's unfortunate for Indiana that this one slipped away quite in the way that it did. Looking ahead, again, this team can compete. Playing a full 40 minutes that's successful is kind of the tricky part for IU men's basketball. They were winning the turnover battle, and then it all fell apart alongside shooting. They ended 43% from the field. They struggled to find consistency or rhythm at all inside. It was a tough game. It was always going to be difficult. It's acceptable that they lost on the road against the number 12 team in the country. Oh, by the way, at the Breslin Center. Oh, by the way, it's Tom Izzo. But it could have looked a lot better, and there was still a lot left to be desired, and a lot of that has to do with turnovers. They have an opportunity at home against another highly ranked opponent in Iowa. Bennett Sturts is a guy that plays super hard for the Hawkeyes. I love watching him. I really do. I really have enjoyed watching Iowa. Maybe part of it is because most of my memory of Iowa was the game against Minnesota, which was obviously a ton of fun, back and forth, super interesting down the stretch. Also, their game against Purdue the other night was pretty fun and interesting. But it'll be a tough opportunity for Indiana. But if you want to pick up a ranked win, you're playing at home, you potentially shooting well, right? If you take care of the turnovers, this may be a situation where Indiana makes its mark in the Big Ten. Again, maybe there's upsets against Nebraska and Michigan State or one of them. Maybe not if they take care of the basketball, but certainly they would have looked like they were much more in the game if those turnovers didn't spiral out of control in the second half as they did in both of those contests. It's what Coach Darian DeVries, I was in the press conference, it's what Coach Darian DeVries cited as, maybe what stuck out to him the most. Well, that's not a direct quote. That weren't his direct words. But when asked about the collapse and asked about the second half struggles and blowing the 16-point lead, I should say, the turnovers were what came up in conversation quite a bit for DeVries. And then also you look at this game where plain as day, the turnovers just, go through the roof in the second half. And obviously Michigan State storms ahead and is able to win with flying colors, in part because of that. So a difficult situation for the Hoosiers in both of those games, but they certainly have the ceiling. They have a ceiling that's high enough to be in the NCAA tournament. They have a ceiling that's high enough to win games in the NCAA tournament, and taking care of turnovers and taking care of the basketball is going to be something that kind of provides the difference between a team that struggles and a team that succeeds a great deal in the Big Ten moving forward. Either way, IU men's basketball this weekend against Iowa. There's a lot of action, albeit wrestling. I know I guess there's not Indiana women's basketball, but plenty of basketball this weekend across the board, plenty of wrestling, so much to watch, so much to be interested in. The NFL playoffs, right? I believe there's, oh my goodness, the IU football team is in the national championship against Miami on Monday. Obviously a lot to do with that. So lots to be excited about, lots to enjoy, lots to appreciate. And I look forward to the rest of the weekend, and I look forward to all of that.